Hey, Who fans, and welcome to the Big Blue Box podcast. My name's Gary.
My name's Adam.
And welcome to episode 427. Welcome back to another episode, Who fans. We hope you are keeping well and safe. We hope you've had a cracking couple of weeks, that you've all managed to do something. Doctor Who related. Just pipped you. Just got in there.
That was close.
You paused for a fraction too long there, bud.
You snooze, you lose.
That's the moral. That's the story of the day.
Yeah.
There we go. So we are at 427. Thank you very much for bearing with us. We've had a bit of time off, really inconveniently planned in the world of Doctor Who. Adam's been travelling back from the US to the UK. I've been travelling over to the US for a vacation. And this all happened, as I said, quite inconveniently. It turns out that when you're planning trips and stuff like that, and you say to your better half, yeah, but we can't go then because of Doctor Who, apparently that doesn't hold much water.
No,
apparently
don't go down well.
Doesn't go down that well. So yeah. On the flip side, it has given us an opportunity to watch the episode a couple of times, digest it a little bit, and listen to some other podcasts who have given their thoughts and read some blogs and just absorbed, what fandom's thinking and all the rest of it. So just want to give a wee shout out to some other Doctor Who podcasts that we've... I don't know about you, bud, but I still listen to about a handful of Doctor Who pods these days.
Yeah, me too, yeah.
And not as many as I used to. Some of them, sadly, have fallen by the wayside of recent years. But, the Doctor Who podcast.com, those guys always do a good one. Who's He podcast, the Doctor Who show, our friends down under. Mm-hmm. They've always got a good take. And Radio Free Scaro, those guys are always, I think consistent is probably the best way to describe that one. Bit like ourselves over the years, they just turn up and show up and do the show. The other guys do that as well. Doctor Who show and those guys do it, but the old Radio Free Scaro dudes have been doing it for so long now. Consistency is the name of the game with those guys.
I'm going to throw in the 50% podcast as well. 50, I love those guys.
The 50%, yeah.
Yeah, those
two. Aussies as well, right?
Yeah, yep. From down under.
Very, very cool, those guys. Really cool on TikTok, by the way. If any of you are Doctor Who TikTokers, then check out 50%. They do loads of really cool. They've got the TikTok thing nailed.
Yes.
For Doctor Who. Corner to Corner, those guys are cool. Mm-hmm. They've had some good guests on over the years. I quite like their take on it. And there was another one, Phil. What's Phil? Phil.
Phil Cannon?
No, he's been around. Phil Cannon. That's Who's He, isn't he? Sorry, I've said that one.
I was going to say he's Who's He.
Yeah.
Although he does jump on the Doctor Who show as well, I think. Yeah, he does.
He does, yeah. There's a couple of others that I listen to, but I can't remember off the top of my head what they are. So it's been cool just to check out what fandom's thinking and stuff like that as we fill up the notebook with thoughts and whatnot. So
it's always mixed, isn't it? That's why I like to listen to a variety of podcasts, because you think you think, oh, these guys are going to, and then the reaction is always different on the shows. It's not like although it's been fairly consistent on this particular finale, I think. It's always good to get a few variety of opinions. I find myself as well sometimes listening, and I'm sure people do with us as well. And when their views don't align with mine, and I'm sort of shouting at my phone saying, "What are you talking about? It was rubbish," But that's half the fun of it, I think. Is getting to hear other people's thoughts. Yeah. Yeah,
of course, it's very cool that. And before we get going with our review and on the reality war, I'm going to forget later, so I'm going to ask you now. What did you think to the trailer for The War Between the Land and the Sea? Because that dropped afterwards, didn't it? And you and I have had some interesting thoughts on, because this is one of the first sort of proper spin-offs we've seen since, I guess, Class, I think.
Oh,
Class would have been
even
the
now
last.
when you say it, it's like a dagger for the Class. Gives me
Well,
a
that
little
would have
bit
been
of
the last
cosmic
one.
angst every time you
Oh,
say
God.
that word. Yeah.
But the trailer dropped for it, and I will say, mate, I was pleasantly surprised by the trailer. So I know you obviously the trailer is a somewhat of an indication of what to expect, but you should never go on that, of course, to see what the actual thing is going to be like, whether it's TV or films. But what do you think to the trailer drop?
Yeah, I thought the trailer looked pretty good. I mean, this is the thing I keep forgetting. This spin-off is even, happening until someone mentions it or we see a trailer. So, I kind of don't feel like I'm that bothered about watching it. But when I saw the trailer, mate, yeah, I thought that looks decent. Production values looks good. I got a bit of a sort of Torchwood Children of Earth vibe. It looks like it's taking, a bit more adult, a bit more taking itself a bit more seriously. I'm not sure about the fish person design, what that is. So I'm intrigued by that. But no, I thought the trailer looked good, mate. And it's the first thing that actually made me sort of sit up and take notice of this spin-off, because up till now I've really been so unbothered about it. Yeah, it looked good, I thought. I mean, the problem is we don't know when we're getting it. Is it this year, next year? When's it coming?
Well, it's expected to be released in 2025. That's the...
Oh, it is coming this year. Okay.
Supposedly, yeah. But yeah. Well, like if anything about the recent era of Doctor Who has taught us all, you could use this line to answer anybody's question about anything to do with Doctor Who these days. And the answer is, who bloody knows?
Right.
That's
Who
your
knows?
answer to pretty much every question, whether it's, is this character coming back? Could what went on with this storyline? What was that plot thing there?
Yeah.
Is the war between the land and the sea coming? The answer's who bloody knows?
Have they finished filming it? I'm assuming it's all in the
Yeah.
can and ready to go, is it? They're probably doing post-production on it, but...
Yeah. So that was filmed, that wrapped up December last year. So between August and December, that was all filmed and done, yeah.
Yeah, no, I thought it looked good. The trailer looked promising. I think that's the word I'd use. I sort of, when it finished, I thought that looks promising. And I like Russell Tovey, mate, actually. He's a good little actor. And so having him in it, I think, is a plus, because the unit lot, oh dear. I mean, I don't know, that's not enough to get me in as a viewer. But I think Russell Tovey's a good actor. And also, he's one of the nicest people I've ever bumped into. So, like with celebrities, people say, oh, what were they like when you met him? I bumped into him randomly in London years ago, and mate, he could not have been nicer. Just he stopped and chatted and had pictures, and it was a lovely meeting. So whenever I see him, he's already won me over, because I think, oh, he was lovely when I met him. So I'm quite looking forward to it. Actually, I wanted to ask you something. Did you watch the Doctor Who Unleashed 20 years thing?
Of course.
Yeah.
Pretty good, that.
Yeah, I mean, I've been a bit grumpy after the finale. Sorry not to give any spoilers away about my thoughts, but I was a bit like, oh, I'm not bothered about it. I'm not watching it. And then I really was a bit grumpy. And then it just, I was watching some YouTube late at night, because I've been suffering from the old jet lag. I've been staying awake watching YouTube to all hours. And I switched off YouTube, and it was on the TV. It was actually on at like 11:30 at night. I guess they were repeating it or something, because I assumed it was just an iPlayer thing. I thought you actually had to go and seek it out to watch it. So it was on the TV, and I thought, oh, I'll watch it. And mate, I'm so glad I did, actually. Watching all those early clips and a few little behind the scenes bits. And I mean, I wish it had been longer. I know they rushed this out. I know it was a bit of an afterthought to even put this show together, and it did show, because they really skipped through certain eras, particularly Capaldi, which a lot of people have picked up on. Blink and you miss it. But it was so lovely, actually. It really reminded me what I love about this show. In some ways, it made me feel a little bit sad about the sort of place we're in now. When it finished, this sort of limbo we're in, and the way the sort of show's gone, I thought, it's a shame, actually, when you look back at particularly for me, when seeing the behind the scenes of Matt, Karen and Arthur just messing around on set, I just saw those guys just, I don't know, they just had such a good friendship, it seemed, and it really translated to screen. So seeing those guys messing around behind the scenes and Billy talking with David, and yeah, it was just lovely. I thought really nice. I know they rushed in and put it together and it could have been better, but it was a nice little sort of sum up of the last sort of 20 years of what they're calling New Who, which considering it's 20 years old, I'm not sure we can still call it New Who, but anyway, yeah, we know what they mean.
Yeah, it was a good one, that one. It was and as someone who's half Welsh, I really appreciated the spin on this one. So it was 20 years in Wales.
Yeah,
was the hook for it, and so yeah, I really liked it. And I absolutely agree. Whenever you see Billy Piper and David Tennant, they're always just chummy and laughy. You can tell they're good mates, and it's all good. But I had similar feelings, mate. I'll be honest with you. When that finished, I thought, that was, I don't know. Just I know everything looks a bit rosier and nicer, and with your nostalgia goggles on, and I totally get that. But I did have a little feeling of Doctor Who feels very, very different now. Yeah. And we could, I think we could spend an entire podcast episode diving into why that is. But I think, yeah, just overall, similar to you, I felt like, I've got a very different feeling now after watching an era or a series of Doctor Who now versus, series 3 or 4, 1, whatever it is.
Yeah. I know it would probably never happen because it would take a lot to do. But I would love to see like a show like that. But if they could manage to get like Peter Capaldi and Matt Smith to actually come back and partake in it and just talk about their time, I would just love to hear them reminisce about the time on the show, because David obviously came back with Billy and there was some really nice little segments with them, so they come back and chatted about their time, and even that was really interesting because they again obviously get on really well. There was lots of laughter and smiles and reminiscing, and there was a little bit where Billy said, I wasn't actually going to come back for another series after Chris left. I'd sort of thought no, and David was like, really, what made you come back? And so I thought, that's interesting. I had no idea. I just assumed that she was up for doing it. So I was thinking, I would have liked to heard more about that. Why didn't you want to come back? Was it was the first series not that good? And in terms of production, did you not enjoy doing it, or what happened? And then she was saying, she was so glad she did because her and David just clicked and they laughed pretty much every day on set and all this sort of thing. So there was some nice little nuggets in there, and I thought, God, imagine having, Peter and, dare I say it, Jenna, come back. But, I'd still be interested. I'd be interested to hear them talk about stuff like that. I mean, I was amazed. Jenna Coleman didn't even make the cut. She wasn't in the show at all, considering what a big part she was of the latter era of Clara Who. She wasn't even in it. So, yeah, it would be lovely, wouldn't it, if we could do like a proper, real retrospective. You get all the old, all the new whatever Doctors back. Chris, of course, would never do it, but it'd be fascinating though, wouldn't it, to hear
that'd be amazing.
Look back on that time. But
it would be amazing. I think they will do it one day. One day. I think, in the future. I think give it another 15, 20 years when they're a bit older, and because I think a lot of actors go through that period of reflection. When they want to make that public, where they want to write a book or they want to start a podcast or whatever. So, they start to talk about things a bit more publicly once they've been out of something like that for a while. I think David Tennant, though, I think he's always just going to be Mr. Doctor Who. I think any time that the BBC or Russell or somebody says, Dave, do you want to come and be in this interview? He's like, yeah, I was meant to fly out to LA in the morning and settle this, this budget and get paid, I don't know, $3 or $4 million for this film. But I'm going to drop that and come and do this Doctor Who thing in rainy Cardiff. Yeah. So I'll see you in the morning.
He is that was lovely, wasn't it? That's what you do get that impression with David. That was lovely when him and Billy were talking about the Dalek and how he was so fanboying over the Dalek when he first saw it. And Billy was like so unbothered by it, but knew that it was a big thing. So she was like, so I had to pretend. And he's like, yeah, you weren't fooling anyone. There's like David on his knees going, oh, wow, this is amazing. And Billy's like, yeah, wow. And he's like, you haven't got a clue, have you? This is doing nothing for you. There were lovely moments like that. I think Matt would come back, actually. I mean, the other bit I loved about it was Stephen Moffat. He's so dry. I love the old mothball, mate, don't you? When he's in interviews, he's such a dry old stick. And I mean that with love, in a good way. And he was like, I text Matt this morning and said, why did you leave? And he said, oh, I wish I was still on set now and all this. And, there is, you can see there is really nice friendships and things that are still there, even though actors have moved on and they're still in touch with each other. The Moff still texts Matt and, stuff like that. So, yeah, I can imagine Matt coming back and doing something maybe when he's a bit older.
He will do, defo.
Yeah. When he's less busy. He's probably out filming another Terminator film, but, whatever he's doing now. I don't know what he's doing now, actually. I love Matt, by the way. He's still, even when I watch clips, he's still, to me, the best. Him and Capaldi, maybe, the best doctors we've had since the show came back. Whenever I see Matt, mate, I just think I'm just want to watch whatever episode that they're showing. Not because it's a good episode, just because of him.
He's amazing.
Yeah, he is.
Yeah. When you and I were going through our retro reviews, and we were, what's the phrase? We were clearing the board. We were just getting through every episode of Doctor Who ever.
Yeah.
And back in the day, so going back a few years, if you're a new listener, we used to do this sort of rotation where we'd throughout the month, if it was a standard 4-week month, week 1 I think was a new recent Doctor Who. Week 2 was Torchwood, I think. Mm-hmm. Week 3 was Classic Who, and week 4 was the Sarah Jane Adventures.
Yeah.
And we did a couple of years of that rotation. It was really cool. And every time we got onto a Matt Smith episode, you and I would inevitably say similar things in our review, where it'd be, the more we watch Matt, the more he just is just 100% one of the best doctors.
Yes.
To be, one of the best actors to be the Doctor in the current years, the recent revival years. And he's a gem. I have not watched Matt in a while, I'll be honest with you. I've not watched a Matt Smith episode it must be pushing on for a couple of years now, mate. At least, yeah. So I think I'm slowly going through a bit of a rewatch of all of Doctor Who at the moment. I'm just coming up to the end of, this is going to be a long chew, but I'm coming up to the end of Hartnell's era.
Oh, right, yeah.
I started this last year and I'm only up to the end of Hartnell. So, but when I, in 50 years, when I get to Matt Smith stuff, it's going to be awesome. But yeah, I agree, mate. He is one of the best.
And actually somebody said it, I think it was on that show. No, it must have been a podcast I was listening to or something. Said the thing that I've always said. I loved Matt at the time. He was a young guy, and now he's a bit older and a bit more aged, and he looks a bit more rugged. I just think, wow, imagine what he'd be like as the Doctor now. I mean, I would love him to come back, but I wouldn't, because he's already, let's say he hadn't been the Doctor before. I would love Matt to play the Doctor now. I mean, I still would actually. If he come back, I think I love him so much that I actually wouldn't be bothered. But I just think, in the last few years, he's really sort of, I don't know. I just think he would be phenomenal as the Doctor now, as this slightly more aged. Because when you see him in the 11th hour, when they show clips of it, you think, frickin' heck, he was so young. How was he that good at that age? So imagine what he'd be like now.
Yeah, I don't know whether he'd ever come back and do another stint as, like, do a Tennant and come back as some kind of, I don't know, maybe in X amount of years when whatever showrunner has figured out that there's also another way of regenerating and another.
That's the problem.
We've had standard generation regen, and we've now had bi-generations. There'll be another way of, things happening in the Doctor Who universe when we're, I was going to say when we're old and decrepit, but we're already there.
Already there.
So Matt Smith, he might come back at some point in some way. The showrunners invented this way for previous incarnation to come back. It would be amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, it would.
Yes.
And how many of those castles in Cardiff have you been to, or Wales, I should say, have you been to? Because I didn't realise there was so many castles there, because I've only been to one of them, I think, but you've probably been to all of them, haven't you?
Bloody hell, you've been to one castle.
I think I've only been to the one in the middle. I've only been to Wales probably 2 or 3 times in my whole life. Yeah, no, I want to go to the big one by the beach, by Bad Wolf Beach or whatever. That's the one I want to go to, which I'm pretty sure you'd have been to.
The one down. Oh, what's the?
I don't even know the names of them.
The actual name for that beach and that stuff there. I can't remember what it is, but there's a big like proper old school stone castle.
Yeah.
Down by there. There's been a load of castles that have been in Doctor Who, mate. Yeah, Caerphilly Castle and
Caerphilly, is it? Yeah.
Yeah, there's been loads, and
I do love a castle.
Yeah, but yeah, Wales has got. I think something is ridiculous. Like per square mile, Wales has got more castles than any other country in Europe or something like that.
I'm definitely overdue a visit to Wales, mate. I absolutely loved it when I went all those years ago. Went to Edith's Diner, which is no longer there, of course. Went to the Torchwood Hub. I didn't make it to Sarah Jane's house. That's somewhere that's still on my list of places to go. Have you been there? I can't remember.
I have, yeah.
You have, yeah.
It's not too far. It's from Cardiff town, city centre.
Yeah.
It's not too far, but you need to go down to Yanto's shrine as well, down by the bay.
Oh, yeah, I went there. Because this was, when I went, it was, I went to the Doctor Who exhibition. I know, shouldn't mention it.
Mate.
Don't get teared up. So it was back in those days, whenever that was. And I went to the studio on the TARDIS set, and oh man, yeah, I was in heaven that weekend, I tell you. Yeah. But yes, I did Yanto's Shrine, obviously. I'm so glad it's still there as well. I mean, I am going back years that I visited it, and it's still there, going strong.
It is, yeah. I was there, I think, 2 months ago.
Yeah.
3 months ago, and it's still just as it was, 5 years ago.
There's always a big old pair of pants or knickers. Somebody always puts a pair up on there, which is good to see with Yanto's face on it. But yeah, no, it is cool, isn't it? And I mean, I've seen, I forget the actor's name. What's the actor called? I've seen
it's not Russell Tovey.
No, not Russell. Yanto
guy. What's his name?
David Lloyd, is it?
I think so.
Just doesn't sound right in my head. But I know that he occasionally pops and takes a selfie outside the front of it to post on like Twitter, doesn't he? To say, oh, still here, sort of thing. Which must be quite surreal for him. Yeah. You Google
Gareth David Lloyd.
Gareth David Lloyd, that's it.
Yeah, that's the one. Again, if you're a new listener, that's our thing. We're absolutely shocking with names.
Yeah.
It's just the thing we've got together. It's like a weird coincidence. It's like out of 2 co-hosts, one of them should be good with names, the other one's bad. But no, we're both absolutely terrible.
And we're not getting any better with age. We're getting worse.
There you go.
So,
all right.
Yeah, don't expect that to improve anytime soon, dear listener.
If anything, it's going to get worse.
It is.
So, welcome. Welcome to the podcast. On a serious note, welcome to the podcast, new listeners and old grizzled ancients. It's great to have you listening to us waffle. It's 20 minutes in. We should probably get on to the review before we crack on with that. If you are a new listener, make sure you're following or subscribing to the podcast, as you'll get a notification every time we drop a new episode. And we also do a monthly roundtable where we get the guys over at the writing team who do all the blogs and articles for the website. We get them on and we just chat about random stuff to do with Doctor Who. It's all good. The next one we'll do for that, those guys are going to dive into their thoughts on the reality war and Wishworld. I think they all want to talk about the 2-part finale and so on. So that will be coming up. So make sure you're following for that stuff. You can find us on all the major podcast platforms, or you can head over to the website and listen there, which is bigblueboxpodcast.co.uk. All the episodes are there, plus all the reviews and articles and whatnot from the writing team. While you're there, you can link off to the social channels. We're on all of those. We chat Doctor Who throughout the week, so come and get involved there. And there's a link to the free Discord server. It's another place to hang out and chat Doctor Who with lots of other cool Doctor Who fans. And lastly, don't forget to remember to head over to YouTube, type in the old search bar, The Geek's Handbag.
The Geek's Handbag, yeah, that's my YouTube channel. I really want that on a t-shirt, by the way, mate. Don't forget to remember. Yeah, my YouTube channel, The Geek's Handbag, also on all the socials under the same name.
Indeedy.
Yeah.
Go and check it out. Alrighty, bud. For the last time in Ncuti's era,
yeah,
what are we reviewing this week?
Yeah, let's wrap this era up. The episode was called The Reality War.
Deep in the Underverse, Omega, with his body, I can resurrect the time loops and construct a new Gallifrey.
My battle is in there, saving my daughter.
I swear, I will stop you.
Omega, Omega, Omega. Omega live.
Fire!
Lots going on.
Lots going on, yeah. Lots of noise.
Lots going on. Yeah. Before we crack on, is it Omega or is it Omega or Omega?
Omega.
I thought it was Omega.
I've always said Omega. But I mean, it's pronounced about 3 different ways in this one episode. So I think anything goes, mate. I think.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. A couple of people there schooled me up on the old Twitter on the pronunciation. So I think I went back and checked out a couple of clips on YouTube of the 3 Doctors, and I think I'm right in saying that Pertwee is like Omega.
It is, mate. And actually, it's funny because I knew that somebody had ticked you off on Twitter or wherever about your pronunciation of it. And when I was watching the episode with my partner, I did turn to him and say, do you know what? Someone had a go at Garry about mispronouncing Omega. It's been mispronounced about 3 times in this episode. So, I think we should let him off. I don't think it matters anymore. So, yeah, I did think of you, mate, while I was watching this.
Apparently, it's a longer O sound followed by a shorter, so it's Omega.
Omega,
as opposed to Omega.
God, I'm doing
I
it
think
now.
Omega is the thumbs down. Get told off for that one.
It's the whole metabulus, whatever thing all over again.
Metabolus versus metabolus. Yeah.
It depends what director's on set that day. I think. Yeah. We'll get to that though. I did notice that it. Even Ncuti said it different ways in different scenes. I kept thinking, what's going on? Has someone corrected him halfway through the shoot and said, oh, by the way, we've just realised you're saying it wrong, so say it like this now. So anyway. Omega.
Anyway, The Reality War. First broadcast on the 31st of May, a couple of weeks ago. It was written by Russell T Davies, directed by Alex Sanjeev Pillai, and it stars Ncuti Gatwa, Varada Sethi as Belinda, Millie Gibson as Ruby, and then a bunch of other people. And the synopsis is short and sweet. Battle rages across the skies as the Unholy Trinity unleash their deadly ambition. The Doctor, Belinda and Ruby have to risk everything in their quest to save one innocent life. So, Bud, as always, what do you think to The Reality War?
Well, mate, what an absolute dog's dinner this was. If I'd have paid £17 or whatever it was to see this at the cinema, I think I'd have thrown my popcorn at the screen, honestly.
Oh, mate.
Yeah, I thought it was terrible. I wasn't expecting it to be good. I mean, my expectations were pretty low anyway because of Russell's finals never really land. But the thing with this, mate, is, and you said earlier, is that there was a lot of noise. There was a lot going on. A lot of screaming, a lot of shouting, a lot of explosions, a lot of expedition, things happening. And I was just unengaged by all of it. I was just sat there thinking, God, I watched this again last night. I thought, because we've had a bit of a break in between. I thought, I'll give this another watch, because let it all sink in. And obviously there is quite a bit to talk about and stuff. Oh, I tell you, mate, honestly, about 10 minutes in, and I'm not even, just literally 10 minutes, not even further, I was thinking, I am really struggling with this. I can't wait for this episode to end. It just was even worse in a way on a second watch. I just thought it was terrible. A terrible final. Nothing landed for me at all. I think watching it again last night, if I'm honest, when the episode I think probably originally ended And then it does feel very tacked on the last sort of 20 minutes. You know, I think we know there was reshoots and whatever. I actually think, if anything, the only bit I really enjoyed was when the episode actually stopped shouting and blowing things up and calmed down. And we got the whole scene with the Doctor realising he's got to regenerate, and there's a nice scene where he goes back and he realises he's not Poppy's dad and all that. And the thing where I'm conflicted is, mate, I think that's the bit where I actually felt some sort of connection to the episode, in terms of I was actually feeling a bit of emotion that the Doctor's like, I can never have kids and all this. I thought, oh, it's actually okay. These scenes are quite nice. But the problem is that none of it really made sense of what had come before. And I felt like you could tell that you know, a lot of this was rewritten to accommodate Ncuti leaving, because I don't believe it was always the plan. I think he said that in Unleashed. I think that's clearly not true. We heard him on Graham Norton saying he was doing another series, even though they cut the line out. And we've already talked about him leaving, and you know, it's absolutely fair enough that he's decided to move on at this point with the way things are going. So, but yeah, for me, mate, this episode was just a mess, an absolute mess, and I didn't find it entertaining. I didn't find it satisfying at all, really. I didn't really feel much emotion when Ncuti regenerated. And as for the person that popped up at the end, I'm just going to say this, right? I really like Billie Piper. And I do think she's a good actor. And a bit like with Russell Tovey, she springs to mind as one of the nicest people I've met in person. I didn't meet her at a convention. I actually met her at Stage Door. And I was really impressed how she interacted with fans, how she had time for everyone. So I'm a fan of Billie Piper, right? As an actor and as a person, as someone I've met. But I just was like, what's this about? You know, I don't think she's the Doctor. I think Russell's put her in there as a bit of a placeholder, to be honest, as something to sort of get us talking, to keep the show, rather than just sort of ending with an open regeneration. It's something for us to talk about. So I don't mind if she does turn out to be the Doctor. I at this point, I don't think I really care. But it's no slight on Billie. I've no problem with her at all. At this point, I'm just like, I don't know where Russell's going with this. And the sad thing is, I don't think I care. So yeah, this episode, mate, it just left me feeling like that, to be honest with you. So not good. And I don't like feeling like that about Doctor Who. In a way, it's been good that we've had these 2 weeks off, because I feel like, this might sound a bit over dramatic, but I feel like I've had to step away, mate, to be honest. You know, you talked about watching Doctor Who again. I have not wanted to go near Doctor Who since this episode aired. I've really needed a break from it. It's almost like a relationship split. You think, no, you know, we're still friends, but I need to just step away for a bit. And that I know that sounds dramatic, but that's genuinely how I felt. I've just not really wanted to engage or even talk about Doctor Who for the last 2 weeks. And now I feel like the dust has settled. I've rewatched it, and you know, maybe I'm ready to go back and give that person a hug and say, okay, let's move forward. But it didn't leave a very good taste in my mouth, this finale, mate. It was, if anything, it was worse than I was expecting. I mean, I haven't even gone into like the Rani being eaten and the waste of Omega, and there was just so much that just didn't land for me. Anyway, I've probably waffled on long enough. What did you think? Did you love it?
Did I love it? I did not love it.
Okay,
no.
right.
And I think more than anything, I'm going to sound like a proper parent here. Overall, because a lot of fandom was I saw a lot of people really frustrated and borderline angry at some of the things in it. Don't get me wrong, there was also a portion of fandom that really liked it, and fair play. For me, as a proper parent thing, I wasn't angry or frustrated with it. I was disappointed. Yeah. Not angry, I'm just disappointed. The reason why is because I feel like when I say they, I probably mean Russell. Russell has completely just backed himself into such a massive corner with a lot of things within the story, completely unnecessarily. This, like a lot of Doctor Who finales that don't quite stick the landing, what you can see is the potential there. You can see that this could have been an absolutely brilliant story. I guess that's a wishy-washy thing to say. You can say that about any show, but it's very true with this. You had all the ingredients there to play with, and this could have been an amazing finale. But things like, we were saying before we went on break about, are they just going to have a massive reset button in the finale? And you were like, of course they are, mate.
Yeah.
There's going to be something that happens where miraculously the Doctor's saved from somewhere. And then at the end of the episode, reality is going to go back to normal. Everything's going to be fine. So what would have been cool is to leave everything on a bit of a cliffhanger, which I know is difficult because things behind the scenes of the show have been a bit topsy-turvy with the whole Disney thing, which we are guessing now, with an educated guess, that they've dropped Doctor Who. So that was sort of up in the air. You also had, because of that, you had the offshoot of, is Ncuti going to stick around? Like you mentioned on the Graham Norton, he was like, yeah, season 3, blah, blah, blah. And then that doesn't happen. So he's obviously moved on because he's got bored of waiting and all that stuff. And then on top of that, you've got series 1 and 2 filmed almost back to back. So by the time you've gone back and realised, actually, this would be cool, or we should have done that, or we could do that, it's too late. It's already done and in the can and ready to rock and roll. There's not enough money and time to go back and change anything. So they've sort of shoehorned in like the final 5 minutes of it all and left it on a bit of an open-ended thing, which is not the way open-ended thing that I wanted. Like if you go back and watch the end of, say, Stranger Things season 4, it looks like it's going to be tied up quite nicely, but then all hell breaks loose and it gets left on this amazing cliffhanger and you're like, wow, like 100% cannot wait for season 5.
Yeah.
Whereas with Doctor Who, I think you're the same with this. It's like, well, whenever it turns up, we'll watch it, but I'm not sort of chomping at the bit to see who Billie Piper's character actually is. Is she the Doctor? Is she the moment that's back to fill the gap? Because they've been waiting around for this whole Disney thing, everybody's in limbo, cast and crew, everybody. They can't obviously go into sort of casting mode because they don't know where the money's coming from. They don't know what's going on. So I think you're absolutely right, mate. I think this is the Billie Piper thing is just a gap filler because there's nothing else they can do. You can't have Ncuti signing on the dotted line saying, right, I'm out of here. And then the regeneration scene is done. The only thing you could do is sort of cut his regeneration off halfway and then you sort of CGI it later with the new actor's face and so on. But so, yeah, a lot of wasted opportunity and a lot of things that just didn't make sense to me in terms of Omega. I'd lost for words on that stuff, mate.
Yeah, that was the most disappointing bit, and I knew it was going to be disappointing as well.
Yeah, because I think this goes back to, and we will get onto a few things that we did like, I'm sure, but just get these sort of bits out of the way. There's like certain things within Doctor Who lore that you just don't mess with too much because they have a certain status within the lore of the story and also within fandom and that kind of thing. It's a bit like making Batman, instead of having like, a black cowl and cape and that sort of thing. He has an old sort of dinner lady tabard on. And then when fans question it, you're just like, oh no, that's just, just how we see Batman. It's like, no, like the cowl and the cape is like the iconic thing.
Yeah.
But when you mess with it for no reason, it's like, why'd you do that? It's a bit like Omega. He was this great character from the classic years. And instead of making something of that and making him potentially the focus of the story in terms of being taking over as the bad guy, he just ends up being this big bit of CG slop that we had with Sutek in the last series.
Yeah.
But that goes back to the issue of, if they hadn't have filmed all this stuff back to back, then potentially you could, because once series 1 had gone out and you had the finale with Sutek, and then you saw that a very large portion of fandom just just
The
wet
backlash.
themselves laughing at how ridiculous the whole Sutek thing was, then you keep it like, right, okay, that didn't land. So the idea we've got to do this CG version monster of Omega, let's revisit that, because fandom's clearly not keen on the whole, let's turn these classic characters into just CG monsters. But you can't, because it's already been filmed and done, and you've paid for the visual effects to make it. It's all there. So there's a lot of problems that's what I mean, where you're in a corner. You're in a corner because you've done all this stuff. You then look at fan feedback and you're like, oh, crikey. I can't go back to the BBC bosses or Disney and say, can I have a bit more money?
Which they
We've
might
done
have,
something.
they might have had to do that with the regeneration as well, haven't they? I feel like that the reshoots, they may have already had to say, can we have a bit more money? So yeah, you're right. They can't go back and say again. Yeah. Yeah.
And then the Rani, you've got the bi-generation thing for Mrs. Flood with the other, the other version of the Rani, the cooler one, in my opinion, the one that had, again, the most potential. And she just gets swallowed up. And then I think there's some rules around. I could be wrong here, mate, so please correct me. But I think there's some rules that have been created clearly out of thin air about bi-generations, where if you're the offshoot one from the generation, then you can go on to regenerate. Whereas if you're the one that sort of was there before, you can't regenerate anymore.
Yeah.
So what they've done is they've now just binned off the Rani as a character that could come back and regenerate. Now we've got Mrs. Flood, who's obviously still the Rani, but she can't regenerate now.
Oh yeah, I hadn't even thought of that. Yeah.
So now you've got this very cool character who you've brought back, which fans really like, but now you've essentially just condemned them to some kind of death in the future because they can't. That's it. That's the Rani done as a character, if you follow the rules that you've set out for yourself in terms of bi-generation, of course. So they've wasted Omega. They've wasted that iteration of the Rani. They've wasted Belinda's character in the end.
Yeah.
She just ends up defaulting to just a single mum after everything that we had at the beginning of this series.
I know.
Where the mystery of why she was Monday from that episode in series
solved?
1. Nope, nothing at all. So, when in episode 1 where the Doctor scans her DNA and she gets humpy with him.
Yeah.
And we have that mystery around, I've met somebody who looked just like you. What's going on there? What's the connection? Nothing. This whole attitude that, I want to say attitude, I mean this in a good way, that Belinda brought to the role of the companion to push back against the Doctor. Like, it kind of insinuating that the previous companions have been swept up in his kind of, in his vibe and, the thrill of adventure and all that stuff. She's like, no, I just want to go home. So she pushes back and she's stronger. We get 3 episodes in and she's like, oh, this is like I'm living my best life here. I get to dress up in all these things and Doctor, you're amazing and I think you're amazing and everything's great and brilliant. And then we get to the end where that strength has just slowly gone. That attitude and that sass, that sassy that she had, that's gone. And now at the very end, she's just a single mum.
Yeah.
So, and don't get me wrong, I'm not saying anything single mums. That's not what I'm saying.
Not
what
where
I mean
the
is,
character started and the potential, the waste of potential.
So that's sorry, mate. Yeah, that's another waste. So do you see what I'm saying? The potential was there to have some really cool things going on, but yeah, down the drain.
Yeah, I think Verada Sefu was so badly let down by Russell. I mean, this is what I don't get. We've always, in the past, praised Russell for how good he is at writing and creating characters and how he manages to tap into characteristics that we can relate to and connect to. Belinda, as a character, is going to be so forgettable, mate. She's going to be one of those companions that people say, oh, Belinda Chandra, and you're like, what? Well, oh yeah, her. She's not quite in Dodo territory, but she's certainly down there. And it's such a shame because, like you said, and I do wonder if we may never find out, but we've heard so much about, issues behind the scenes that Millie was sort of dropped after series 1 and the original tension was for her to be in series 2, blah, blah. I don't know if any of that's true, but it does align with how this series sort of ended. A few people have said this. It would have made much more sense if Millie had still been the companion because of the connection to space babies and Poppy, and it just didn't make sense for Belinda to be, this mum at the end and with Poppy, to me anyway. And even watching it again last night when we had the flashbacks where she said, "Oh, I kept telling you I need to get back because my mum's got a babysitter," or whatever. I'm like, that's the thing. It was I think you said it earlier, frustrating watching this because nothing really made sense. And I do feel like whether those rumours of, what's her name? Ruby, what's her real name? Millie. Whether
Millie
those
Gibson.
rumours are true about, her being sidelined, and taken off the series or whatever. There's definitely been some issues in this series because you felt like it was being rewritten. You could almost see that Russell had to sort of do rewrites and reshoots, and it felt very clunky and it didn't piece together and it didn't make sense. And that's why nothing landed, because you start to think, well, hang on, well, why did that happen then? Why did she do that? How did she know this? How she didn't even meet Poppy. The line that really got me, mate, and I'm sorry to say, I used to think Russell was such a good writer. We used to praise him to the hilt, but he's lost it somewhere along the line, because the bit that really showed it up to me was when Ruby actually says to the Doctor, "But why? Why could I remember and no one else could?" And the Doctor says, "Don't worry about it. I don't know. I've no idea," I think he says. And I think that's Russell sort of saying, "Yeah, I know that I haven't explained that. I'm just going to put it in. And if I say I haven't explained it, then that makes it okay." And I just thought, it's just so many plot holes and threads that didn't really sort of connect if you actually, watch the series overall. And I just want to quickly say about Omega as well, mate. It was so predictable it was going to be some sort of CGI abomination. You could see that coming a mile off. But even so, it didn't feel anything like the character of Omega at all, did it? And then
not at all.
When it swallowed the Rani, that's the bit where I would have thrown my popcorn at the screen, mate. I was just like, are you kidding me? Just, that's that solved then. You can almost see Russell doing it, writing it, right, so we need to get rid of the Rani. Not Sutek, Omega eats the Rani, that's that done then. Mrs. Flood grabs the bracelet, she's gone. And again, it's just like reset, that's done, and when the episode wrapped up, I looked at the clock and thought, we've still got like 25 minutes. And it feels like the episode's ended. So what's the rest of it? That to me is where it feels like, all the stuff's been tacked on and he's tried to sort of make it all work. And I do believe that Millie was supposed to be the companion for Series 2, and then perhaps Belinda was supposed to come on board for Series 3. I think that to me sort of makes more sense in the narrative. And obviously, things haven't worked out for whatever reason, and Russell's gone in and changed it. But I don't know. None of it really connected, mate. None of it really landed for me at all.
No, it's one of those things. You're absolutely right. It felt a bit convoluted and a bit disjointed as you went through the story. And there was a couple of, once the episode had first gone out, obviously I know that fandom's a bit of there's a lot of knee-jerk sort of things going on, but there was a couple of tweets that sort of stuck with me. I can't remember who the guy was. What's his name? I think it's Josh something. Does a lot of Doctor Who YouTube stuff. Josh Snares, that's the guy. Yeah. And he put a tweet out that said something along the lines of, "I don't think Doctor Who is aimed at me anymore."
Yeah. Well, a lot
it
of people
feels like it.
That.
Yeah, and that kind of resonated a little bit, because I thought to myself, well, maybe if I was, 20 years younger, that would make me 25. If I was 25, or if I was, 18 or 19, whatever, this probably would have been a great episode of Doctor Who, potentially, because I feel like the powers that be are making decisions around these iconic, important characters that I mentioned earlier. They're making decisions because it's okay. What does the younger audience want to see here? And I honestly feel like that's been a bit of a driving force with some of these decisions around Sutek being a big CG monster, and now the same with Omega. I feel like, because remember when a couple of years ago when you and I were doing whatever episode it was, and we spoke about when the news broke that Disney was going to be the streaming partner.
Yeah.
And all this stuff. And then as part of that, they said that they were going to reset all the numbers. So it was going to be season 1. And it was going to, in an attempt for sort of more international viewers to feel like they've got a safe sort of jumping on point to get into the season. And then secondly, when we were going through season 1 and we were talking about viewing figures, the BBC or Russell, one of the two, came out and said, yeah, the viewing figures are down and we expected that because of the landscape of TV and how people view it has changed and blah, blah, blah. But one thing that we're really, really happy with is the younger viewer count. So like the big bracket of teenagers to lower 20s, people like that they've seen the biggest growth in those viewing figures. So I feel like the people at Disney and some other BBC execs or Bad Wolf, don't know who they are, maybe a combination of those people, have said nobody wants to see an old dude in a robe and a helmet having a conversation with the Doctor. Nobody wants to see that. What they do want to see is amazing visual effects, and they want to see a monster, because we want to give them Star Wars, we want to give them Stranger Things, we want to give them that stuff.
Yeah.
What we don't want to give them is so I feel like that's the kind of crux of why these things are happening. And the wasted potential of Omega, I think, is the perfect example of that. And when Josh Snares said, I don't think this show is aimed at me anymore, this all kind of resonated with me a little bit. And a couple of other people said similar things. And I thought, you know what? I fear that is potentially correct. I don't know about you, mate, but I came away from this thinking, I don't know if that's for me anymore.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I know a few people have said that, and it's a horrible feeling to have when you've been, invested in a show for as long as we've been invested in Doctor Who, because that is exactly how at the minute I feel that even if there's talk at the minute of it getting a new streaming partner, even if it does, I think as long as RTD's in charge, I don't think I want to continue watching it, because again, I don't think it's aimed at me. I'm certainly not enjoying it. I mean, we've had a couple of people comment saying we've been really negative, even when we've enjoyed an episode. So, which is fair enough, but that's the thing. If I'm not enjoying something, why do I continue to watch it? I was having a conversation actually with a friend about it. And I said, I feel like if it gets another season and Russell's going to be showrunner for another season, I feel like I'm probably not going to watch. Because I just don't want to. I think I've just lost faith in him as a showrunner and a writer, in terms of I don't want to be watching something and just sat there like I am now, just moaning, saying I'm not enjoying it. But I do think I would say that, and then when the time comes, I think the curiosity will get the better of me, and I'm still going to want to tune in. It's a bit of a morbid fascination, isn't it? Like, can I actually step away from the show after all the years that I've been watching it, even though I'm not enjoying it? And I think I felt a bit like that during the Jodie era, but it wasn't quite the same as now, because even though the Jodie era didn't hit home with me, there were still elements I enjoyed, and I think sometimes, the writing, the heart was in the right place, if you know what I mean. Although I think they didn't get it right a lot of the time, but there were still things to enjoy in it. At the minute, it just, every week, it's just like I'm almost got my head in my hands, and I think, why am I watching this? Why am I putting myself through it? So I don't know. We're such a strange place at the minute, mate. But I do feel like it's not being made for us. But then I ask myself, who is it being made for? Like, that to me says you've got a brand. I'm all for change and renewing it and freshening it up, but at the end of the day, you're making Doctor Who, so at the core of it, you still want it to appeal to people who have been watching Doctor Who for years. That's surely got to still be at the core of the show. Otherwise, who are you making it for? You may as well make a totally different programme. If you're not aiming Doctor Who at Doctor Who fans, well, what's the point of calling it Doctor Who? I don't know if I'm quite getting the point across, but do you know what I mean? Why not make a different show then? Because if you want a whole new set of fans, if you want to appeal to a whole new audience, well, you may as well make a different show. You know, if you don't want Doctor Who fans, I don't know, this doesn't make sense to me, mate. That's what I'm saying. I don't know who they are making it for now.
It's weird, mate, because to follow on from that, I wanted to mention just a couple of minutes ago about resetting the season numbers. The whole point of doing that was to encourage new viewers to jump in to Doctor Who. But I think it was, what episode was it where we spoke about some things that were going on? And my wife, she was just, I'm done.
Oh,
I think it was the story in the end.
no, was it The Well? I can't remember. I remember you saying that Nat said, "Oh, I've had enough of this." No, it wasn't The Well. The Well was a good one. I can't remember, but I remember you saying it might have been Story in the Engine.
Yeah, The Well was okay. It might have been Lucky Day or Story Engine, but basically my wife just said, look, I don't have a beeping clue what is going on. So even if they're trying to make this a point for new viewers to get into the show and start watching it, so on one hand you think, okay, they're kind of gearing the show towards people who have not watched 60 plus years of Doctor Who. You just want to get into it, and if you like it, then go back and check all that out. Previous stuff, great. But on the other hand, you've got new viewers who must be watching this thinking, what? You know, to excuse the pun with the whole Tennant thing, but they must be thinking, what? What? Like, what the hell? And then on top of that, if you've got a viewing party going on, or you're chatting to your friends, and you've got older viewers, long-time viewers versus brand new viewers, you've probably got them saying, oh, you wait, Reality War's going to be an absolute belter because Omega, blah, 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 blah. And newer fans are like, oh, sweet. You know, my mate who's been watching Doctor Who for his entire life has just, set me on a bit of a hype train about Omega, this really, popular character, this baddie from the old school days. Things are going to go down. And then you get that, and then you look over at your mate and he's just sort of rolling his eyes or her eyes, and it's just, so it's at odds with itself. The show is kind of set itself up to be one thing. You watch it and then you think, okay, it's clearly now this thing.
Yeah.
But while it's trying to be this thing, it's also it kind of goes round in a bit of a circle, and you think, I don't know. And unfortunately, this is the finale. It's just an extension of that. There are things that happen and you think, okay, you want it to be a CG monster for all the cool kids, fine. But why did you do it to that particular character?
Yeah.
Like, surely to God, that particular character has earned the right to be to hold more weight and to be more important in the story than just a throwaway bit of CG that it just makes no sense to me.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure you predicted, because I said this when I was watching it when going out live. You know, when he pulls his washing line off the clock and starts shooting Omega back into his little cave. I'm sure you said that. You said he's going to pull that thing off the clock. I bet you that's how he resets it all, and he did. And I was just like, oh God, it's so predictable. But that's the thing with Omega. I mean, like you said, the actual design of it, right? Quite a cool looking CGI skeleton thing. But it's not Omega. So like you said, why call it Omega? Why not just say, oh, there's this thing coming out and it, looks pretty scary and whatever. But also the fact that it didn't do anything. And that is the problem with when you bring big characters back that are fan favourites. If you're going to bring them back, you can't just have, they've got to do something, and they don't seem to know what to do with them. That's the problem. Just going back to what you're saying about the show, mate, and who it's aimed at as well. I think that is the problem at the minute, is that I think Doctor Who's sort of lost or forgotten its identity. It's forgotten what it is. It's trying to appeal to just about everybody, but appealing to hardly, to nobody really. So that's what I mean. I think they need to just, sit back, look at what Doctor Who is as a show. What do they want it to be? Stop trying to appeal to everyone. Stop trying to, be everything with it, and just be Doctor Who. And if people like it, they'll watch. You'll grow an audience if it's good television. But you've got to stick to your format. And at the minute, like you said, they're trying to appeal to new fans. They're trying to have jumping on points. They're trying to throw in old monsters for the classic fans. and it's what it's turning into is just a complete mess. Instead of actually, it's not working. Do you know what I mean? You've got to sort of almost. I mean, if it was me as showrunner, I would go back to basics. Get it back to being a simple show about a guy who's traveling in a police box that he can't control, that lands on planets and in different time zones, and there you go. Just go back to basics a bit, I think. But what do I know? But that's what I would do. You know what I mean? Just rediscover what Doctor Who is as a show instead of trying to make it into whatever it is now. And like you said, maybe it's just that it is so different from what we're used to as Doctor Who that maybe it isn't being made for us anymore, which is a shame, really.
It is a shame, yeah. A good example that I thought of when I finished watching this episode was, Journey's End and Stolen Earth, when they brought Davros back.
Yeah.
So when you see, who was it? Julian
Bleach.
Julian Bleach as Davros. That's a really good example for me of bringing back an old school baddie, but not having to reinvent the wheel with it and trying to be. Could you imagine if they did a CG Davros and all that? So although they've tweaked the look and feel just a little bit, and Julian Bleach is playing it slightly differently from the old school days, for the most part, it's just Davros, isn't it? From what's it, of the Daleks?
Genesis of the Daleks.
Genesis of the Daleks, yeah. It's basically that. And that was a really good example for me, because when I finished watching that two-parter, that finale, I thought, I'm watching Davros from Doctor Who.
Yeah.
It's pretty much there with some slight nuances. But with this, it's like you're not watching anything. You're not watching any sort of coherent thing. It's just I don't know. Omega, we're done with that.
It's in name only, is basically, isn't it? That's what you're saying. Only. You don't feel any connection to the Omega that we've seen in the other stories, basically. You don't look at that and think, I can see Omega in that. I totally get it. Just before we move on from other things being thrown in, mate, and I think, like you said, we're done with Omega, but I think we were both expecting Susan in this, and I do wonder again if this is due to the reshoots/rewrites that she wasn't in it, or maybe she was never intended to be in it. But I'm not one for speculation or rumour, but I am siding on speculation and rumour that I think she was supposed to be in this. I'm sure you've seen that photo that's floating around of the Doctor in a club with Belinda, which is from a scene that was never in the episode. That is rumoured to be the original ending. I believe that came from, it was like a German TV show or something. Like when you upload a YouTube video, it gives you sort of templates to use as the thumbnail. And I think that's what that picture was. I believe that's where it's come from. So it is genuine. So I'm fascinated now. Like, what I would just love to know, what was the true original ending? What was Russell's plans? There's clearly been stuff that has gone, awry during production of this series, especially as they were filmed back to back. So I don't know if this stuff will ever come out. And what's worse, mate, is I feel like they're trying to cover it up. And I think it'd be much, much better if they were just honest with people. I think we've worked out a lot of it already. Just come out and say, this wasn't planned. We weren't sure where the show was going. Ncuti doesn't want to hang around forever. I mean, you don't have to word it like this, obviously, but I'm just saying, just come out and tell us. It'd be so much better than all this. Oh, yeah, it was always the plan, darlings. I was always going to leave and all that. No, you weren't. You said you were doing another series. Just be frank with us. Just tell us what's going on. But the Susan thing, mate, we saw her in a different costume on the Unleashed. She was in the previous episode, the Interstellar, or the episode back. So what was the point of bringing her back? I mean, both of us have wanted to see Susan back for absolutely forever. So we were delighted that we might get to see her come back. And there is a line, I should have written it down, towards the end of this episode where the Doctor's, she says, "Oh, you'll have to settle down now," or something. And I thought there was a line that said, and I thought that could almost lead him into going and finding Susan. It could almost be like, I'm going to go and find, I haven't got a baby, I'm going to go and find my granddaughter, I need to reconnect. I don't know. So my feeling, mate, is that Susan was supposed to be in this. I think she may have filmed stuff that was cut from this episode to accommodate the regeneration, which I would love to know when the Jodie stuff was filmed. I want to get onto that as well, because was that a late addition? Did she replace Susan? I don't know. But let's talk just quickly. A, do you think Susan was meant to be in it? And B, I want to know what you thought when you saw Jodie come through the door.
Yes, I think Susan was meant to be in it. 100%. Yeah, I feel like she was meant to be linked to Poppy in some way.
Yes.
And I think she was meant to be either Susan's mum or Susan's daughter, whichever way round it was. There's like 1,000 rumours about that, but I think, yes, Carol Ann Ford was totally meant to be in the finale. And so I think that was cut due to the whole Ncuti leaving reshoots, bit of a Frankenstein ending, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And when I saw Jodie come through the door, do you know what? I wasn't too miffed about that, if I'm honest with you.
Had you heard the rumours she was back, or was it a surprise?
I heard, yes. Okay. Yeah, I heard the rumours, yeah. But because they were rumours, I didn't obviously pay them too much mind. But I wasn't too miffed, mate, if I'm being totally honest with you. I think just enough time has elapsed from when we last saw Jodie to now. Like if this was the end of season 1, or if there wasn't such a big gap with Doctor Who coming out after her era and getting this all going and whatnot, then I think that would have been slightly too soon. But I think, a few years have gone by, and I think she's... I wasn't too... She was like very good. I mean, Jodie, we've always said that Jodie's a great actor, and she went back into the role of the Doctor very, very quickly, and was almost like she had stopped filming yesterday. She was very good in that respect. I just wonder, like we were saying earlier, maybe if Matt Smith had come through the door, would that have got a better reaction? Obviously, it wouldn't have been David Tennant, because we've been down that road a few times already.
Yeah.
But, if Matt had come back, I think I would have lost my beep at that point. It would have been amazing. Or Capaldi, one of the two. But yeah, it wasn't too bad. It was as far as like shoehorned endings go, that part of it wasn't too bad. What did you think?
Well, this might surprise you, mate. I actually think it's one of the very few things I enjoyed in the episode, and I was surprised feeling that myself, because I'm not, as long-time listeners know, I'm not the biggest fan of Jodie's Doctor, and nothing against Jodie. I just never clicked with her incarnation of the Doctor. So when I saw her, I was like, oh no, God, Jodie now. Like, I'm already hating this episode enough, and Jodie turns up, and actually, I really liked that little scene. I really liked Jodie in it. Because I don't know, it's just the way she sort of strutted in, and she looked very at home on that set as well. It kind of really suited her Doctor somehow, that TARDIS. And she comes in, she's like, hello, mate, and all this sort of thing. And I don't know, it was a bit like seeing sort of an old friend, but maybe one that you've sort of, that gets on your nerves after a while. You can only be in that's how she's always struck me as a Doctor. I like her, but I can't spend too long with her because she starts to get on my nerves. You know what I mean? But they're a friend that you like. And I just thought it was a lovely scene, actually. I really, really liked it. And I thought Jodie, sort of effortlessly slipped back into being her Doctor, So, I thought it was nice. I just liked the fact that she sort of was there to reassure him, and there was all that stuff on the screen when they're showing the old Doctor's faces. I just thought it was a nice scene. As I said, I'd sort of almost... my eyes had sort of rolled into the back of my head at this point during the episode, but when she came in, it did sort of snap me back into it. And I thought it was a nice moment and a nice scene. And I was surprised when I finished watching it the first time that one of the few things about it that I liked was Jodie. I thought, gosh, how times have changed. I just thought it was good. I was, surprised, pleasantly surprised to see her, actually, more than I thought I'd be. I'd heard the rumours as well, and I kept thinking, oh no, when she comes on, I'm going to be like, oh God. But no, I wasn't. I thought, oh, that was quite nice.
Yeah, same. I thought it was pretty cool.
It almost made me want to go back and reevaluate her. I almost felt like, have I been too harsh on her era? Maybe I should go back and rewatch it, but I don't know. I don't know if I'm quite ready for that. But it was, I don't know, it did feel cool, I thought, to see her.
Yeah, same. And we're kind of doing this bit, ask about face, but what did you think to Ncuti's regeneration then? Because Just quickly for me, bud, on one hand, I was like, okay, I kind of, this is a really weird sort of paradigm that my mind was in when I was watching the regeneration, because I didn't have any or much feeling or emotion for the Doctor regenerating. In my head, I was thinking, well, Ncuti, I was thinking about the actor going more than the character, which is weird. And I thought to myself, fair play to Ncuti, because whether you like his portrayal as the Doctor or if you don't like it, he's put up with a lot of stick.
Yeah.
Since he's been the Doctor. As Russell's taken some of it, but Ncuti has taken a lot of criticism and a lot of backlash. He's taken it all, and he's just kept going with that, with buckets of energy and that big smile and so on. And he kept that going right up until the end. So it was weird. I didn't feel much of a connection to the Doctor, but I did somehow was weird as like, oh, fair play, Ncuti. You're regenerating now. So that was weird. And then the other thing is, just to give you a massive slap of irony across the face, you and I have said for the last 2 seasons, I don't know what Murray Gold's doing, but he's a bit like Russell. It's not like, the very cool stuff that he did when he was in Doctor Who before. Right up until the very end, they wait until the last bloody 2 minutes or whatever, and he pulls out this absolutely beautiful piece of music that I do remember. After the episode had finished. So they wait till right at the very end, and then this lovely bit of music, which I remember. So it was a weird regeneration for me. I don't know about you.
I can hear that music in my head. Yeah, so it's a nice,
really cool.
It is, and that's what you want, isn't it? Something you think, like you said, you can instantly recall in your head and it sticks in your brain. That's a really nice way of putting it, mate, actually. I absolutely agree with that. I didn't feel anything towards his Doctor leaving, but I was, I think, whilst watching that, thinking about Ncuti as an actor. And like you said, just the fact that he's felt that it's time to leave already. He's only done a handful of episodes, really, he's done the equivalent of 1 season compared to the other Doctors, hasn't he? Pretty much, maybe a little bit more. So yeah, that's a really interesting way of looking at it, and I absolutely agree with you. I when I'm watching it, I wasn't thinking, oh wow, the 15th Doctor's off. I was thinking, gosh, poor old Ncuti. I think he's been dealt a rough hand, is what I feel. I think when he burst onto the screen, in his first proper episode, the Ruby Road, was it Church on Ruby Road, the Christmas one?
Yeah.
I remember saying he's got a lot of potential, this guy. I'm loving him already. I remember saying that. I remember saying he has that spark to be a fantastic Doctor. I if you go back and listen to that episode, I'm sure I remember feeling that Ncuti was going to be, a real sort of a good vibe from him, his Doctor. And over the course of these 2 seasons, the way, and I know a lot of people say this about Jodie's Doctor, and people say, yeah, well, she wasn't very good, but blah, blah, blah. I do feel with Ncuti, a large majority of why I have not clicked with his Doctor is down to the way he's been written, the material he's been given, because I definitely saw some great stuff from him in between that, but he's been massively let down, in my opinion, with the way they've characterised his Doctor. And so, yeah, I didn't feel much emotion seeing that Doctor moving on, But I felt for Ncuti. I thought he's probably, when he took this role, had all these expectations, and he probably thought, I'm pretty sure, no matter what he says, he was not going to leave after Series 2. He probably thought he'd be going on and filming Series 3 by now. So, yeah, I think that's what was going through my head when I saw it. I just thought, wow, wonder what he was thinking filming this. Because I almost feel like, mate, with the way things have gone, if it was me, I'd be thinking, things have not worked out the way I thought they would, and I can't wait to jump ship. I've got to get out of here. That's I don't know. I don't want to talk for him, but I'd be thinking almost a sigh of relief of like I've got to move on from this ASAP, because it's not gone the way I thought it would. That's what I'd be thinking, but who knows? So I felt for him, is what I'm trying to get to. I felt for him more than the Doctor. So yeah, it's a really good way of summing it up.
Yes, indeedy. Circling back to just a couple more bits to pick up on then. The Time Hotel.
Yeah.
That was another appearance, and an interesting... little thing as in, how's the Doctor going to get out of this one? The cliffhanger from a Wish World, and you think, how's the Doctor going to get out of this one? And then, the magic door opens and and away we go. And that was the who was it that opened the door?
Anita, is it?
Is it Anita Ben, isn't it? That's right. Yeah. So interesting. When me and the rest of the Big Blue Box crew went to the Capital Cutaway event a couple of months ago, one of the guests on stage was Steph Diwali, who played Anita. And somebody had asked her about, the guy interviewing, because she was on stage with Susan Twist and Gemma Redgrave. And the interviewer said, so what are you guys working on now then? Anything you want to plug? Anything that you're working on that's cool? And got to Steph, and she was like, oh, I'm actually doing a bit more television work now. I'm doing that right now as we speak. I've, almost finished. And but I can't tell you guys what it is. But something cool coming up. So I think this is what it was. I think she had come back, and after she had done finishing the Time Hotel stuff later on, I think she was doing something else as part of this reshoot stuff, because there was an interaction between Anita and the Doctor that was very, we're not going to do anything anymore. It's like, I won't see you again.
Yeah.
So there was a bit going on there, but she was quite cool. I mean, that episode back in season 1 with the Time Hotel, that was really cool. I think we rated that reasonably well, but her character was good. So that was kind of cool to see her. Do you think we'll see the Time Hotel again?
No.
Do you reckon, or that's done and dusted?
I don't think we did rate that episode very high. I'm trying to think that, mate. Maybe we did, but I'll tell you what, I was actually pleased to see her, because so much of this, there were so many rumours about this episode that actually came true. Billy Piper being the biggest one, the biggest shock. I still can't believe that rumour was true. Ncuti regenerating, Susan, all this stuff, So that was one of the few things I wasn't expecting, if you know what I mean, was Anita and the Time Hotel to be part of the story. So I liked that. A few people have said, having a magic door, that's not actually how the Time Hotel worked if you go back and watch the episode, which, yeah, okay. But it doesn't bother me. I'm never really too bothered about stuff like that. So, yeah, I thought it worked well, and it was a good way of getting them out of it. And it was nice to see her character back, because I think, from my memory, mate, you might have enjoyed it more than I did, but one of the few things I liked about the episode was her character. I think she was one of the things that worked well in it. So, good to see her back. I sort of liked the flashback scenes. She sort of opened the door and there was 11 playing chess. I was like, oh! And then the third Doctor with the Daleks. But then she opens the door and sees the Doctor dancing with Rogue. And she looks upset and she sort of does this sort of nod as if like, oh yeah, of course, he's gay, isn't he? And I thought, you spent a year or whatever with him. It was supposed to be, I think you might have picked up on it. Unless your gaydar's really crap, So I didn't get that scene, like why she was upset seeing him dance with Rogue. Sort of as if like, I should have realised that. Didn't get that, but yeah. Anyway, good to see her back, and I thought it was a good way of getting him out of the cliffhanger, because it just sort of got him out of it straight away and straight back into the story. And I like the fact it tied it up with that particular episode, because it did feel a bit filler. So at least it kind of makes it more part of the overall arc, if you like, having it come back.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. I just wonder if we're going to see that Time Hotel. It just seems a bit of a convenient, like a nice little...
It's almost too convenient, mate. I don't think we should, because if you start to... Because like, if you can open doors anywhere, you can pretty much save yourself from it. I don't know. I think it's a little bit too convenient. I don't think we should see it again, to be honest. But we might.
Yeah. Feels like a convenient little mechanism for future writers to dip into if they need to. Who knows?
That's what I mean. It's too convenient. It's too much of a get-out clause for any, we're going to die, blah, blah, blah. Hang on, there's a door here. What's this? And Anita's there. But, her performance is good as well. I know she said she hasn't done much acting work, but she's actually quite a natural. What did you say her name was? The actor,
Steph Diwali.
Yeah, she gives a nice little performance. Actually, did she kind of just vanish? Where did she go in the episode? I'm struggling to think now. Did she just pop off in the Time Hotel?
Well, the Doctor. It's kind of weird, isn't it? That the only way that him and the rest of Unit and everybody can get their correct memories back is if she holds the door open. So she was, oh, bless her. She was a bit of a glorified doorstep for most of it. But I think at the end, he was like, you're going to have to go now. And she's like, I'm not going to, I'm sure she says something like, I won't, this is the last time I'll see you or something.
Oh, right. Okay.
But I think the doctor just says, yeah, you've got to split.
You might be right, mate. I only watched this last night. I can't even remember that. That's the thing. It does, towards the end, it does get very disjointed, this episode, doesn't it? Like Mel rides in on a scooter and does a big old hair flip and then does absolutely nothing, completely wasted. I was really looking forward to seeing Mel and the Rani, together again, and there is a tiny little bit where they're like a bit of bants back and forth, but again, what happened to Mel? I can't. It's as if like the episode the characters just suddenly vanish and it moves on. I don't know.
Yeah, it's fallen foul a little bit of the problem we had with the Rise of Skywalker, where you've got so much going on, but you haven't got enough runtime to do a satisfying conclusion to a lot of things. So Mel was wasted, mate.
Mel was wasted. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you there. I just suddenly remembered. I do remember her leaving because I'm talking about Anita, because she says, the boss says hi, by the way.
Oh, the boss.
I've just remembered. Yeah, that's how she goes. And the doctor says, oh, the boss, eh? I'm going to park that. So that, again, this other sort of arc that's been thrown in since the 3 specials, wasn't it? The boss got first brought up, I think. So I don't know if that was something Russell was hoping to carry on over to series 3, or if by the doctor saying he's going to park that they can't be bothered. I don't know. But yeah, that's how she goes, isn't it? She mentions the boss.
She does. Yeah, that's another arc that will get picked up in 5-6 years.
Yeah.
That'll be something that pops up.
In the Amazon-produced Doctor Who. But yeah, Mel, mate, completely wasted. Completely. It's such a shame, isn't it? This is the problem. I don't have a lot of sympathy for RTD because he's thrown everything in the kitchen sink in there, and he didn't need to do it. I don't know why he's created so much, stress for himself by trying to have all these characters and give them something to do, because it doesn't. He's just made a rod for his own back, hasn't he? Really.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Let's finish up on a couple of bits. So, Poppy, the baby. This was like the crux of everything, I guess. So, I guess what happened is when Conrad had set up this wish world, that was a cool concept in a way, where they had that was the reason why the Rani kidnapped the baby in the first place. So it was one of the gods, wasn't it? The god of wishes. Yeah. And Conrad uses that power to create this sort of false reality on the world, but it's on a loop. So reality crashes down on itself and then it resets itself and it goes round and round and round. And so that was a cool concept. And the way that you could see the Rani sort of trying to put the pieces in place to move forward with that, in terms of a grand plan, it was almost, I think it goes back a little bit to what we said last week, so a couple of weeks ago, where she was almost like the master in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
In that respect, so you could see like the evil, Bond villain thing going on and all that stuff. And the result of Conrad making this wish was that the Doctor and Belinda were a couple with a baby, and then it transpires that obviously none of that's real. But what did you think to this concept of? Because it was quite weird to watch at first. Let's put Belinda and the baby into the
zero room.
The zero room. So that was kind of weird. And then at the end, when they're in the TARDIS and Ruby can't believe what's going on, they're folding up and passing to each other Poppy's coat, and it's getting smaller and smaller, which is like a visual way, I guess, of their memories being, vanishing and getting smaller. So, and then Poppy comes back, obviously. So that's the whole reason for the regeneration, right? The Doctor sacrifices his regeneration energy, slams it into the time vortex, and then moves reality by 1 degree, I think it is. And by doing that, he's kind of saved the life that was created, aka Poppy. So what did you think to this whole thing with Poppy then? Because, that ended up being like the main thing, if you like, the thing that the Doctor had to do. So I don't want to get into the whole, well, really, it should have been taking down Omega and the Rani, that sort of thing. But it became more about, let's save the baby, save Poppy and stuff. So what do you reckon to Poppy being the main plot device in the end?
I think it's a really strange narrative choice. That's what I mean. It's just another thing thrown into that sort of, I don't know. I just don't know where Russell was going to with this episode, mate. It just seemed to have no structure to it. It was so clunky. I mean, I will say, once you realise that the sort of main story arc is about Poppy, then yeah, I really liked the scene where they were folding up her jacket and it slowly vanished. I thought that was such a lovely, interesting way to show that, sort of almost getting rid of the reality. I don't know. It's a really good scene, that. And also Ruby. And hats off to Millie Gibson, mate. By far the best actor in this whole thing. The only one who's actually really delivering some emotion, I thought. Millie was great in that scene because she looks absolutely horrified about the fact that they don't remember Poppy, and while she's watching them fold the clothes. So that was where the story sort of finally hit home to me, was that scene. From that point onwards. Up until then, I really couldn't care. I really was like, what's all this about, So yeah, I think the sort of bulk of this episode did not work for me at all in terms of me being invested in anything that was going on. But from that point onwards, mate, I was kind of, that's when the emotion comes into the scenes, and I was sort of, I did sort of start to care, if you like, but I think by then it was a bit late. But yeah, I just want to say I loved that whole scene in the TARDIS with Ruby saying to the Doctor and Belinda, Poppy, and they're like, who's Poppy? That was cool. That was interesting. And I do wonder what, if there was an original ending, which I'm pretty sure there was. What was the original ending? Was it just that he brought Poppy back with the regeneration energy and he didn't regenerate? I don't know. Because something's gone on there, hasn't it? That's why it felt clunky. It cannot be overlooked that the Doctor is touching grass in that end scene. That is so intentional. Such a little sort of middle finger to all the people that have been using that phrase that he came out with, which I don't think he's ever going to live down. Yeah. So yeah, I don't know, mate. The whole Poppy thing, it just seems a strange crux of an episode to me, considering only because of everything else that's been thrown in the mix that Russell could have used, like Omega, the Rani, which he just dispatches of really quickly to focus on Poppy. I don't know. But I do wonder if that's down to the reshoots, rewrites. I don't know.
It probably is, mate. Yeah.
What did you think to...
Probably.
Sorry, I was going to say, what did you think to the whole... the bioregeneration explanation, where they say that the Time Lords are sterile now and that's why they bioregenerate. Is that a can of worms?
Yeah.
We got another hour to get.
Yeah, that is a can of worms. A little bit. I mean, there is. I'm reasonably sure there is some. There are some sort of Gallifreyan or Time Lord lore around that somewhere. There's a story about that. I can't remember what the name of it is, but and that would have been a better explanation for that stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it was kind of sad in a way.
I didn't like it. I don't see. I'm not aware. I've heard other podcasters talk about this story where that's explained. I don't know what it is. So it seems that a lot of people don't really have an issue with it because of apparently this has been mentioned before in other media. But I'm just not aware of it. But when they said it, I was just like, this whole bioregeneration thing to me does not work anyway. I hope if or when the series continues, they kind of put that to bed and just don't mention it anymore.
Yeah, I hope so, mate, because there's been a couple of things, hasn't there, that have messed around with the lore the last few years, starting with the timeless child thing and biogeneration and all sorts. Yeah. It's they seem to be throwing things into almost reinventing the lore as they go along for all that stuff. So yeah, I don't know, man. I'm kind of in two minds about it. I don't know. Unfortunately, like some other things within the story that could potentially be big, important things, they ended up being a bit throwaway. It was like, oh, okay. Now that you've gone through that, what's the implications? Oh, nothing. We're just on with the story, are we? Okay. let's crack on.
Yeah, and I mean, and that is the thing, actually. I agree. A lot of people have said, and Russell's even said it himself, you know, he's sort of making Doctor Who for content, for sound bites, for click bites now, instead of actually, you know, so it does feel just like content rather than good stories and something, you know, that's got, I mean, rewatchability, mate. I don't ever want to watch this episode again. I struggled to watch it a second time last night, and I'll tell you, when I finished it, I was like, that's it. I won't, you know, I'm never going to revisit this episode, and I don't even know if I'll revisit much of this whole last 2 seasons. There might be a time when I feel like watching, what episodes have I enjoyed? I don't know. I know you didn't like Dot and Bubble, but weirdly that sort of springs to mind as one I feel like, I might go back and watch Dot and Bubble. Or, I don't know. But yeah, that's the thing. It's Doctor Who's feeling a bit shallow these days, that it is just all just like you said, wrapped up so quick. It's got no substance to it, and it's the rewatchability for me that's the big issue. That I just feel like, I don't feel like rewatching these episodes, sadly.
Yep. And then lastly, we haven't spoken about Unit. They were obviously back in the mix. They got their memories back.
Yeah.
Everything's rocking and rolling for those guys because Anita very conveniently turned up, and they're all good. But yeah, in terms of Unit, I mean, I can't really remember what they did.
Shouted a lot,
yeah. Because in the previous episode, we had that whole, you know, fandom, you know, lost their mind because Kate had, you know, allowed Conrad to be bullied a little bit. So she was very shouty in the previous episode. And then in this one, the Vlinx is back and Ruby's trying to, you know, plead, you know, this is an android, surely that, you know, the computer banks, because that's when she's like, what's going on with you lot? Surely you remember. And she's pleading to the Vlinx and he doesn't know either. And so, yeah, Unit are in it, of course. But and we've got Shirley Bingham back as well. And we've mentioned Melanie. But yeah, just, I don't remember them. I remember Melanie's hair changing quite quickly.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, she gets a perm somewhere between the shots. Yeah.
She gets a lovely perm. So yeah, Unit were in it, mate.
Yeah, they were in it. That's it. And that is what worries me a little bit about the spin-off, mate, is that at the minute Unit are not clicking with me at all. They're not working. They don't even feel like Unit to me. So that's a concern I have for the spin-off. But I get the feeling they'll be written a little bit more serious in that, I hope, you know.
Yeah. And obviously Conrad doesn't get killed by the Doctor. I think a few people were expecting the Doctor to cut loose and give him a few slaps again and be mean to him and all the rest of it. But it ultimately came down to Ruby giving him a bit of a showing some mercy there. So in a way, Ruby was acting more like the Doctor we know of, more than the Doctor has acted in the last few episodes of the season, really. She gave him a chance to, not a chance, but she showed mercy in terms of when she made her wish to turn everything back to normal. She also wished that he would no longer be unhappy, basically, and, you know, be content and whatnot. So
yeah, that's exactly
cool.
what I was going to say, mate. She was more like the Doctor. She was the bigger person in the situation, which is what the Doctor should be, not tasering people to death, you know. So yes, I thought that was nice because it just makes me warm towards the character of Ruby, which is what I want to feel about the Doctor. But yeah, he didn't do that. She did. So yeah, I'm glad she did that. I mean, a lot of people were saying, oh, he should have got his greatest desserts. But no, it's about being the bigger man. It's about being the bigger person, you know, and doing the right thing, not just getting angry and lashing out. You know, you got to keep your emotions in check and actually think, well, if I do this, he'll go on to be a better person. The world will be a better place. So yeah, I kind of like she did that. Yeah. I know a lot of people want to see Conrad get his just desserts, but I guess in an alternative timeline he did. So yeah, maybe.
Yeah. A couple of episodes back when the Doctor was tasing that dude, I didn't hate that because I understood from what they were trying to do with the Doctor's character about being triggered by something and showing that side of emotion and so on. But fast forward to this, when I saw Ruby do that, I was like, okay, that's more typical sort of Doctor behaviour. So I saw the contrast between the two of those. And then the baby, she also wishes that the baby can no longer give the power of wish to anybody. So little Bubba becomes a normal, quote unquote, baby. Desiderium, I think is the...
Yeah, I think that's what... Yeah.
The now human baby goes off to live with Ruby's fam.
Yeah, which kind of is a nice way of tying the episode up, because, that relates back to foundlings and Ruby's mum, adopting. And so that, that all kind of works. That kind of ties that up in a nice, neat little bow. I don't mind that.
Yeah, samesies. Okay. Before we put a score on this, which I think I know what your score is going to be, do you have anything else on your notes, dude?
No, I just wanted to ask you, just quickly, I think you said you'd heard the rumour of Billy Piper coming back. Did you believe it, and were you surprised when it turned out to be true? And secondly, how different would your reaction have been if it hadn't have been Billy Piper, but had been either the fugitive doctor or McGann's doctor that's face turned up? Because that, I think, would have set the internet alight. But I don't think Billy's, as I said, as much as I love it, I don't think it's had quite the reaction perhaps they were expecting. But anyway, were you surprised to see her, and would you have preferred to see Fugitive or McGann?
Your first question, I wasn't that surprised, because although I took the rumours with a pinch of salt, I then immediately thought, well, as I said at the very beginning, who bloody knows? So she could bloody turn up. She probably will turn up, because Doctor Who's just bonkers in that regard at the moment. So I wasn't mega surprised, although I did see quite a few reaction videos on YouTube and Twitter and whatnot, where people were just losing their mind. They're like, what? It's really funny watching those reaction videos where everyone's like fairly docile watching the episode, and then the last 10 seconds they're losing their mind and whatnot. So yeah, I wasn't hugely surprised, but then I would have 100% have lost my beep if it was McGann. If McGann had turned up,
people would have.
Yeah, because I think he's, other than that small sort of webisode they did for the 50th, I honestly feel like his Doctor's got so much potential for on-screen stuff. I really do, because he's, outside of him just Paul McGann being a great actor, and also him being, from the years of Big Finish stuff, him being a fantastic Doctor, you can tell that. I honestly believe that he's just, more than any other actor, he's earned another shot, because he had the rug pulled. Because, back in the day with the TV movie, that was an attempt to sort of green light a future Doctor Who as Paul McGann as the Doctor. And because it wasn't received very well, that was his one shot done. I do believe that he's earned another shot at that.
Absolutely.
And just because he's slogged it out and done so many great stories for Big Finish over the years, and he's gone to every convention, time permitting, and he's turned up and chatted with fans and pictures and all the rest of it, he's been doing that alongside all the other actors who have played on-screen Doctors. So I feel like he should be given another, either as a spin-off or, in the show. So yeah, 100%, mate. What about you?
I think the reaction would have been a lot more positive if it had been McGann or Fugitive. I think fans would have been like, because even if it was just for another 3 specials, even if Russell doesn't know what he's doing yet, but as I used the word placeholder earlier, I don't know what better phrase to use, but just something to put in there until they can find their new Doctor, just like a stopgap, whatever. I think if you'd have put Fugitive or McGann, people would have been, oh my God, they're the new Doctor, and are they going to get, even if it's just 3 specials? I think we would have been excited. With Billy, we don't know. Only because, is she the Doctor? That's my final question to you, mate. Is Billy the new Doctor? She's not introduced as the Doctor in the credits at the end, which everyone's picked up on, which does suggest she's probably not. My gut feeling is she's like the moment from the TARDIS. There is, if you notice, a quick flashback to the TARDIS console just before she appears or something. So I think she's going to be like the moment or something like that. She's going to be something to do with the TARDIS, or she'll be the Doctor for maybe one special to regenerate into the new one when they found them. I don't know. I don't know. I don't think she's the Doctor, but yeah, we'll see. But do you think she's the Doctor, mate? Or do you think she's the moment or something like that?
Yeah, I think this is a stopgap.
Yeah.
Because they haven't had enough time. Because the show's in limbo behind the scenes, they can't just plough ahead and start casting for a new actor because they don't know where the money's coming from to make the show anymore. So I think because the show's in limbo, they've had to inject some kind of middle stopgap thing until they get that concrete, and then they can go on and see, right, okay, who's going to be our next Doctor sort of thing. So yeah, I don't think she's going to be the Doctor. I feel like she's going to be some weird, you know what Russell's like at the minute. She could be anything, but I think she's kind of, there's another rumour as well, or theory, should I say, that because Rose absorbed all of the time, the energy from the TARDIS in Parting of the Ways. Was it Part of the Ways?
Yeah, Parting of the Ways, yeah.
Yeah, because she's absorbed all that energy and so on, it's like one of the human faces that the TARDIS feels it can embody if it was to become a human. Yeah. So the Billie Piper's character is actually a physical manifestation of the TARDIS. And it uses that face as, like, you know, because it knows the face, that's basically. If that makes sense.
That's exactly what I'm thinking. Yeah.
You think so?
Yeah, I think that's what Russell's thinking as well.
That could be interesting, bud. Alrighty. If there's nothing else on your notes, dude,
mate, I could go on for another hour, but it would just be moaning. It would just be moaning. So I'll end with a positive, shall I? I'm probably very much in the minority here, because I very much doubt many people watching this would know. Well, they might do, but I appreciated the Ernest Borgnine line, because when they said, "Oh, everything seems back to normal except Ernest Borgnine's still alive," and I did appreciate that, because I used to love Airwolf. I love the Black Hole, and there's something about his name. I've always loved the name Ernest Borgnine, and it's so random. Like, it's such a random actor's name to pull out of the hat. So I know it's a weird positive to end on, but it did make me smile, that line. So I just wanted to end on one positive that I had on my notes.
You take what you can.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Take whatever positive you can.
I can imagine a lot of people watching like, what? But there'll be the odd one like me that's old enough to remember him. Yeah, he was a cool actor.
Agreed. Okay, for scores, I think it's me to go first. And I'm going to give this a 5.5. I'm going to give it a 5.5 just because I think it's just kind of, it's that on the fence, middle of the roady sort of thing, and I hate being indifferent. So the 0.5 for me is for Millie Gibson as Ruby. Ultimately, I think she's been a solid character and a solid actress since she's been in it, since the previous season. And I've really enjoyed Ncuti, but like you said, he's been dealt a shorthand, I think, with the writing and so on. And then they just screwed Belinda's character towards the end. She's Verada Shethu, she's been great as Belinda, but as the character just screwed towards the end and reduced to nothing more than a supporting cast member, really, in that last sort of half an hour. And Millie's bringing that 0.5 home for a sort of fairly middle of the road watch for me, mate. What about you?
I'm still. I don't want to open up the can of worms again, mate. I'm still confused. Belinda was living in a flat in episode 1. Anyway, I still don't understand how that all happened and that storyline with Belinda. So yeah, completely and utterly wasted. I'm giving this a 4 out of 10, and I think I'm being generous giving it that, to be honest with you. I was around about a 2-3 for the majority of this episode. Wow. It went up a bit because I did feel a bit of emotion when the Doctor's looking at the kid and realising it's not his, and I don't know, I felt something towards the end. It was sad when he said I can't have children and all this stuff. So there was a bit towards the end, and I think Millie was great. I think production wise it looked pretty good, so it's not a complete and utter disaster, but yeah, 4 out of 10, and as I said, I think I'm being generous with that.
It's not a complete and utter disaster.
It's a dog's dinner is what it is. Just start as I end as I started. It was a dog's dinner, mate. Complete and utter mess.
Okay. Alrighty. So we will we will be back on the show in some shape or form. If you guys have listened to the podcast for a while, a couple of months ago, we put an update out to say that we're moving to a more seasonal thing. So unless any giant big news drops or we want to come back and revisit some older stories or talk about stuff, we'll probably be back now together to talk about the spin-off, The War Between Land and the Sea.
Whenever that is, yeah.
Whenever that lands. So we'll still be back once a month to do the roundtable episodes. They're not going anywhere because they're always good. But for now, I think on that bombshell of your lowest score in, I think, a long time, potentially ever, I think we'll end it there, dude, for episode 427.
What a way to end it. Alrighty.
Thank you so much for listening to another episode of The Big Blue Box. That was 427 and our review of The Reality War. It was a 4 from him and a 5.5 from me, so we haven't finished on the strongest of stories, unfortunately, for Ncuti's era. However, we don't know when, we don't know how, but the show will be back, we're sure, at some point to explain the whole Billy Piper thing, and however we move forward with Doctor who knows, but we will be back then, obviously, talk about it, and we'll be back again hopefully in a few months' time to review the spin-off, The War Between the Land and the Sea. So we'll be back for that, and as I said, the roundtables will still rock and roll, as will the reviews and the articles on the website, and I'll drop in, I've got some episodes that are going to come up in the next month or two, some interview stuff. So the Big Blue Box is not going anywhere at all, but in terms of us two old fuddy-duddies waffling about current stuff, next stuff will be the spin-off. Until then, make sure you're following or subscribing, of course, to the show. It's on all the podcast platforms. You can also listen online over the website, bigblueboxpodcast.co.uk, and you can also read the articles and reviews there. We're on the socials too. Just do a search for the Big Blue Box, you'll find us on there, and we've got a great Discord server which is free. Hop in there and chat Doctor Who with other Who fans. Also, don't forget to remember to check out my co-host channel. It is, of course, The Geek's Handbag on YouTube.
The Geek's Handbag, YouTube, and all the socials under the name The Geek's Handbag.
Indeedy. So, for the last time for Season 2 and Ncuti's era, that's going to be it from us. Until next time, my name's Gary.
My name's Adam.
And remember...
Hey.